The marble floor gleamed like ice beneath Leora's knees. She scrubbed in small circles. Her hands were red and raw. The soap smelled like lavender. It always did. The scent made her think of gardens she could never walk through, gardens behind locked gates, gardens for people who wore silk instead of wool. She heard footsteps. Heavy, expensive. The kind that echoed in hallways meant for dukes and duchesses. Leora kept her head down. That was the rule. Servants didn't look up. Servants didn't exist unless someone needed them. She pressed the brush harder against the stone. Water sloshed in her bucket. The footsteps stopped. She felt eyes on her, hot, heavy. She tried to ignore them, tried to focus on the rhythm of her scrubbing, back and forth, back and forth. "You work too hard." The voice was deep, smooth like honey, like velvet. Leora's breath caught. She knew that voice. Everyone in Ashford Manor knew that voice. Duke Thorne Ashford. She should answer. She should say something polite, something proper. But her tongue felt thick. Her throat felt tight. "I asked you a question." His tone hadn't changed. Still soft, still careful. But there was something underneath it. Something that made her chest feel strange. Leora swallowed. "It's my job, Your Grace." She didn't look up. She couldn't. If she looked up, she'd see those eyes. Grey like storm clouds, grey like the sea before lightning. She'd seen them before, from a distance, always from a distance. "Look at me." It wasn't a request. Slowly, Leora lifted her head. Her heart pounded so hard she thought he might hear it, thought the whole manor might hear it. Duke Thorne Ashford stood 3 feet away, tall, broad-shouldered. Dark hair swept back from a face that looked like it belonged in paintings. Sharp jaw, high cheekbones, lips that didn't smile often. But his eyes weren't cold. They were searching, studying her like she was something important, something that mattered. "What's your name?" Leora blinked. He didn't know her name. Of course he didn't. She was a maid, one of 20, maybe more. She cleaned floors and emptied chamber pots and kept her head down. "Leora, Your Grace." He repeated it, soft, like he was tasting it. Leora. Her name in his mouth felt wrong, felt dangerous. "How long have you worked here?" 3 years, Your Grace." 3 years, he frowned. "And I've never noticed you." That wasn't a question. It was a statement, a confession. Leora didn't know what to say. She looked down again, back at the wet floor, back at her reflection in the water. A plain girl with brown hair and brown eyes. Nothing special, nothing worth noticing. "I notice you now." Her head snapped up. He was closer, too close. She could smell him, cedar and smoke, and something expensive she couldn't name. "Your Grace, I—" "Don't." His jaw tightened. "Don't call me that when we're alone." Alone. The word echoed in her head. They weren't supposed to be alone. This wasn't proper, this wasn't right. But he didn't move away. Neither did she. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Leora whispered. Her voice shook. Her hands shook. Thorne's eyes softened, just a little. Just enough. "Because I've been blind." Before she could ask what he meant, footsteps echoed down the hall again. Quick, sharp, urgent. Thorne stepped back. His face changed, closed off, cold. The Duke again. Not the man who'd said her name like a prayer. A servant appeared, young, nervous. He bowed so low his forehead almost touched his knees. "Your Grace, the Dowager Duchess requests your presence in the drawing room, immediately." Thorne didn't look at the servant. He looked at Leora. For 1 second, 2, 3. Then he turned and walked away. Leora sat back on her heels. Her heart still pounded. Her hands still shook. Something had just changed. something dangerous. Leora didn't see him for 3 days. She told herself it was better that way, safer. Dukes didn't talk to maids. Dukes didn't notice maids. Whatever had happened in that hallway was a mistake, a moment of boredom, nothing more. But her chest ached when she scrubbed floors now. Her eyes searched for him in every corridor. On the 4th day, she found a note tucked under her pillow. Simple paper, expensive ink. Meet me in the East Garden at midnight. T. Leora stared at it until her eyes blurred. This was madness. This was dangerous. If anyone found out, she'd be dismissed, cast out. She'd have nothing. No money, no home, no future. But her feet carried her to the East Garden anyway. The moon hung low and full. Silver light spilled over rose bushes and stone benches. The air smelled like earth and flowers and secrets. Thorn stood near the fountain, hands behind his back, head tilted up toward the stars. He looked lonely. Leora's shoes crunched on gravel. He turned, smiled. A real smile. Rare. Beautiful. You came. I shouldn't have. But she moved closer anyway. I know. He closed the distance between them. But you did. They stood in the moonlight, silent. The fountain whispered behind them. Water over stone. Endless. Patient. Why did you ask me here? Leora's voice was barely a breath. Thorn's jaw worked, like he was chewing on words too big to swallow. Because I can't stop thinking about you. Her heart stopped, started again, faster. Your Grace, Thorn. His voice was rough. When we're alone, call me Thorn. Thorn. His name felt strange on her tongue, too familiar, too intimate. This can't happen. I know. You're a duke, I'm a maid. I know. Your mother would never allow it. His face darkened. My mother doesn't control me. But Leora saw the lie in his eyes, saw the shadow that crossed his face when he mentioned her. The Dowager Duchess Vivian Ashford was feared throughout the estate. Cold, sharp, powerful. She'd been running Ashford Manor since her husband died 15 years ago. She picked Thorn's clothes, his schedule, his friends, his future wife. She's planning your engagement, Leora said softly. Everyone knows. Thorn's hands curled into fists. Lady Helena, daughter of the Earl of Weston, wealthy, connected, perfect. The word perfect tasted like poison. Then why are you here with me? He stepped closer. So close she could see the gold flecks in his gray eyes, could count his eyelashes, could feel the heat radiating from his skin. Because I don't want perfect. His voice dropped. I want real. Leora's breath hitched. I'm just a maid. You're everything. The world tilted. Before she could stop herself, before she could think, her hand reached up, touched his face. His skin was warm, rough with stubble. Thorn closed his eyes, leaned into her palm, like he'd been starving for touch, for softness. This is dangerous, Leora whispered. I know. We'll be caught. I know. You'll lose everything. Thorn opened his eyes. They burned. I've already lost everything. I just didn't know it until I saw you. His words wrapped around her heart, squeezed. Before she could answer, before she could breathe, he kissed her. Soft, gentle, like she was made of glass, like she might break. But she didn't break. She kissed him back. Her hands fisted in his shirt, his arms wrapped around her waist, pulled her closer, closer, until there was no space left between them. The world disappeared. There was only the garden, the moonlight, the taste of him, cedar and smoke and something sweet she couldn't name. When they finally pulled apart, both were shaking. Thorn pressed his forehead to hers. Run away with me. Leora's eyes widened. What? Leave this place. Tonight. We'll go somewhere no one knows us. Somewhere we can be free. Her heart screamed, yes. Her mind screamed, no. Your mother. I don't care about my mother. Your title. I don't care about my title. Your duty. I care about you. His voice cracked. Only you. Tears burned Leora's eyes. You say that now, but you'll regret it. You'll wake up one day and realize what you gave up, and you'll hate me. Never. You don't know that. I do. He cupped her face, thumbs brushing away tears she didn't know had fallen. I've spent my whole life doing what I'm supposed to do, being who I'm supposed to be. I'm tired, Leora. I'm so tired. She saw it then, the exhaustion carved into his face, the weight pressing on his shoulders, the cage built from duty and expectation. Then rest, she whispered, just for tonight. Rest. They sat on a stone bench, Leora's head on Thorn's shoulder, his arm around her waist. The moon watched them, silent, silver, knowing. Neither spoke about tomorrow. Tomorrow was too far away. But someone was watching from a window. The Dowager Duchess didn't summon Leora. She appeared. Leora was in the kitchen the next morning, peeling potatoes. Her hands moved automatically. Her mind was still in the garden, still wrapped in moonlight and dangerous promises. You. The voice cut through the warm kitchen like ice. Everyone stopped. Cooks, scullery maids, kitchen boys. They all turned. All stared. The Dowager Duchess stood in the doorway, tall, thin, dressed in black silk. Her silver hair was pulled back so tight it looked painful. Her face was beautiful in a sharp, cold way, like a knife, like winter. Her eyes locked on Leora. Come with me. It wasn't a request. Leora's stomach dropped. She set down the potato, wiped her hands on her apron, followed the Duchess out of the kitchen, down the hall, up the stairs, to a room Leora had never entered, the Dowager Duchess's private sitting room. Everything was expensive. Dark wood, velvet curtains, paintings of dead Ashfords staring down from the walls. The Duchess closed the door, turned, smiled. It was worse than anger. Sit! Leora sat. Her legs felt like water. The Duchess poured tea. 2 cups, delicate china, steam curling up like ghosts. She handed one to Leora. Leora took it, didn't drink. The Duchess sat across from her, sipped her tea, studied Leora like she was an insect, something to be examined, categorized, crushed. You're very pretty, the Duchess said finally, in a common way. Leora said nothing. My son has always had a weakness for pretty things. When he was a boy, he collected injured birds, tried to fix their broken wings. Most of them died. The teacup trembled in Leora's hands. He thinks he's in love with you. Leora's breath stopped. Don't bother denying it. I have eyes everywhere. I know about the garden, the kiss, the ridiculous declarations. Shame burned Leora's cheeks. I never meant... I don't care what you meant. The Duchess's voice was soft, deadly. I care what you'll do next. I don't understand. You'll leave, tonight. I'll give you £50, enough to start a new life, somewhere far from here, somewhere my son will never find you. £50. A fortune for someone like Leora, a price for her heart. And if I refuse? The Duchess's smile widened. Then I'll destroy you, and him. You can't. I can. I will. She leaned forward. Do you know what happens to dukes who throw away their titles for maids? They become nothing, worse than nothing. They become jokes, penniless, powerless, despised. Thorn doesn't care about power. Now. The Duchess's eyes glittered. He doesn't care now, but he will. When the money runs out, when society shuns him, when he realizes he gave up everything for a girl who can't even read. Leora flinched. The Duchess saw it, pressed harder. You love him, don't you? Leora didn't answer. Then let him go. If you truly love him, you'll walk away. You'll give him the future he deserves, not the poverty and shame you'll bring him. Tears stung Leora's eyes. He wants to be with me. He thinks he does. He's young, foolish, romantic, but romance dies, girl, and when it does, all that's left is regret. The Duchess stood, walked to a desk, pulled out a leather purse, heavy with coin. She set it on the table between them. Take it, leave, save him from himself. Leora stared at the purse. £50, freedom, safety, loneliness. What if I tell him about this conversation? The Duchess laughed, cold, sharp. Go ahead. He'll defend you, declare his love, defy me, and I'll do exactly what I promised. I'll cut him off, disinherit him. He'll have nothing, and you'll watch him suffer. Watch him blame you. Watch his love turn to hate. Leora's chest ached. The Duchess moved to the door, opened it. You have until midnight. Choose wisely. She left. Leora sat alone in the expensive room. The purse sat on the table, heavy, waiting. She didn't touch it, but she didn't leave either. Thorn found her in the servants' quarters that evening. He shouldn't have been there. Dukes didn't enter servants' quarters. But he pushed through the narrow door anyway, ignored the shocked stares, ignored the whispers. Leora sat on her small bed, staring at nothing. Leora. She looked up. Her eyes were red, swollen. Thorn's chest tightened. What happened? Your mother came to see me. His jaw clenched. What did she say? Leora told him. Every word, every threat, the money, the ultimatum. When she finished, Thorn was shaking. Not with fear, with rage. She has no right. She has every right. She's your mother. She's protecting you. From what? Happiness? Leora stood, wrapped her arms around herself. From ruin. I don't care about ruin. You should. Her voice cracked. I can't let you throw away your life for me. Thorn crossed the room in 3 steps, grabbed her shoulders. Not hard, firm, desperate. You are my life. Stop saying that. It's true. It's not enough. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Love isn't enough. Not for people like us. Then what is? Leora didn't have an answer. Thorn pulled her close, wrapped his arms around her, buried his face in her hair. Run away with me, he whispered again. Tonight, right now, we'll leave everything behind. And go where? Do what? You've never worked a day in your life. You don't know how to survive without money, without your title. I'll learn. You'll resent me. Never. You will. She pulled back, looked up at him. One day, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next year, but one day, you'll wake up and realize what you gave up, and you'll hate me for it. Thorn's hands trembled. That will never happen. You can't promise that. I can. I do. Leora shook her head. Fresh tears fell. I won't let you destroy yourself for me. Then you're saying no. I'm saying... She took a shaky breath. I'm saying I need time to think. It was a lie. She'd already made her decision. She saw it in his eyes. The moment he realized, the moment the hope died. Don't, he whispered. Don't leave me. I have to. Why? Because I love you. Her voice broke. Because I love you too much to watch you lose everything. Thorn's face crumpled. He looked young suddenly, lost. Please. One word. It shattered her. But she stepped back, out of his arms, out of his reach. I'm sorry. She turned, walked toward the door. Leora! She stopped, didn't turn around. If you walk out that door, I won't come after you. Her heart cracked. I know. She left. Behind her she heard a sound, low, broken, the sound of a man's heart breaking. She didn't look back, but she didn't take the Duchess's money either. Leora didn't leave Ashford Manor. She should have. She'd planned to. But when midnight came, she couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't imagine a world where she'd never see Thorne's face again. So she stayed. But she avoided him, changed her schedule, worked in different parts of the manor, kept her head down even more than before. 2 weeks passed. Thorne looked like a ghost, pale, hollow. He moved through the manor like a man sleepwalking. His mother watched him with satisfaction, with triumph. Lady Helena arrived on a Tuesday, beautiful, blonde, perfect. She smiled at Thorne with practiced grace, spoke in soft, cultured tones, wore gowns that cost more than Leora would earn in 10 lifetimes. The Dowager Duchess glowed. Leora watched from shadows, from corners. Her chest ached, her hands shook. She told herself this was right, this was best. She almost believed it. Until she saw Thorne's face during dinner one night. She was serving, carrying plates, pouring wine, invisible. Lady Helena laughed at something, a high, pretty sound. She touched Thorne's arm, leaned close. Thorne didn't smile, didn't react. His eyes were dead. Leora's hands trembled, wine sloshed in the bottle. Careful, girl. The Duchess's voice was sharp. Forgive me, Your Grace. Leora steadied herself, finished pouring. But her eyes met Thorne's, just for a second. Pain flashed across his face, raw, unbearable. Then it was gone, hidden behind the mask he wore so well. After dinner, Leora fled to the kitchen. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. She found a note in her apron pocket. I won't survive this. T. Her blood turned to ice. She ran, through hallways, upstairs, to his chambers. She didn't care who saw, didn't care about propriety. She burst through his door. Thorne stood by the window, glass in hand, bottle on the table. His shirt was unbuttoned, hair disheveled. He looked wrecked. You shouldn't be here, he said without turning. What did you mean? Her voice shook. In the note, what did you mean? Exactly what I wrote. Thorne. Don't. He finally turned. His eyes were red. Don't say my name. Don't look at me like that. You made your choice. I made the right choice. For who? He laughed, bitter, broken. Not for me. For both of us. Liar. He moved toward her, unsteady, drunk. You were scared, so you ran. I didn't run. I stayed. You left. He stopped inches away. You left me. Tears burned Leora's eyes. I had to. Why? Because loving me will destroy you. Not loving you is destroying me. His voice cracked. Can't you see that? She saw it. In his hollow cheeks, his dead eyes, his shaking hands. I'm sorry. I don't want your apologies. He cupped her face, thumbs brushing away tears. I want you. You can't have me. Then I don't want anything. He kissed her, desperate, hungry, like he was drowning and she was air. Leora kissed him back, poured all her pain and love and regret into it, her hands fisted in his shirt. His arms wrapped around her waist, lifted her, pressed her against the wall. The world disappeared. There was only heat, only need, only them. When they finally broke apart, Both were gasping. "Run away with me," Thorn whispered against her lips. "Right now. Tonight. Before it's too late." Leora's heart screamed yes. Her mind screamed no. "Thorn!" The door slammed open. The Dowager Duchess stood in the doorway, face white, eyes blazing. Behind her stood Lady Helena, pale, shocked. Behind them stood half the household staff. Leora's stomach dropped. This was it. The end. The drawing room felt like a courtroom. Leora stood in the center, alone. Everyone else formed a circle around her, watching, judging. The Dowager Duchess sat in a high-backed chair, queen on a throne. Lady Helena stood beside her, pale but composed. Thorn stood near the fireplace, jaw clenched, hands fisted. "This," the Duchess said slowly, "is unacceptable." No one spoke. "My son, the Duke of Ashford, caught in a compromising position with a maid." Her voice dripped venom. "The scandal will be catastrophic." "There's no scandal," Thorn said, voice tight, "unless you create one." "I create nothing. You've done that yourself." The Duchess turned to Lady Helena. "My dear, you have my deepest apologies. This," she gestured at Leora like she was trash, "is a temporary madness. It will be dealt with." Lady Helena's lips pressed into a thin line. "I see." "You don't have to see anything," Thorn said. "There will be no engagement. I won't marry you." Gasps rippled through the room. The Duchess stood, slowly, deliberately. "You will marry Lady Helena. It's already been arranged." "Then unarrange it." "I will not." "You have no choice." "I have every choice." The Duchess moved to the center of the room, stood beside Leora. "You, on the other hand, have one choice to make." Thorn's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" The Duchess smiled, cold, cruel. "The Duchy or the Maid?" Silence, heavy, suffocating. "You can't," Thorn started. "I can. I will." The Duchess's voice was ice. "If you refuse to marry Lady Helena, if you continue this shameful association, I will petition the crown to strip you of your title. You will be disinherited, cast out. You'll have nothing. No money, no property, no name." "You can't do that," Lady Helena whispered. "Can she?" "I can." The Duchess didn't look at her. "The Duchy has provisions. For dukes who bring shame upon the family name, who act against the family's interests. I have lawyers, allies, proof of his misconduct." Thorn's face drained of color. "You'd destroy me." "I'd save you. From yourself." The Duchess turned to Leora. "This creature has bewitched you, poisoned your mind, but I will fix this, one way or another." "She's not a creature," Thorn growled. "She's nothing." The Duchess's voice cracked like a whip. "She is nothing, less than nothing, a servant, replaceable, forgettable." "Stop," Leora whispered. Everyone turned to look at her. She'd been silent through all of it, invisible, the way she'd always been. But now she stepped forward, met the Duchess's eyes. "You're right." Thorn made a strangled sound. Leora didn't look at him, couldn't. "I'm nothing. I have nothing. I am nothing compared to all of this." She gestured around the room, at the wealth, the power, the legacy. "Leora!" Thorn's voice broke. "But he loves me." She said it simply, surely. "And I love him, and that's real. More real than any of this." The Duchess laughed. "Love, how quaint. Love doesn't pay bills. Love doesn't maintain estates. Love doesn't secure the family line." "No," Leora agreed. But it's worth more than all of those things. To you, perhaps, not to him. The Duchess turned to Thorn. Tell her what you told me last month, when I asked about your future, your legacy. Thorn's jaw worked. Tell her, the Duchess pressed, that you said the Duchy was your life, your purpose, your duty. Leora's chest tightened. I said that, Thorn admitted quietly. Before. Before what? Before her. He looked at Leora finally, eyes burning. Before I knew what life could be. The Duchess's face hardened. Then you're a fool. Perhaps. You'll regret this. Perhaps. Thorn moved across the room, stopped in front of his mother. But I'll regret losing her more. The Duchess's hands trembled, with rage, with fear, with something deeper, something Leora couldn't name. If you choose her, the Duchess said softly, you lose everything. Your title, your inheritance, your family name. You'll be no one, nothing. I'll be free. You'll be miserable. I'm already miserable. Thorn's voice cracked. Can't you see that? I've been miserable my entire life, doing what you want, being what you want. I'm drowning, Mother, and she's the only one who sees it. The Duchess's face twisted. I see it. I see everything. I see you throwing away centuries of legacy for a passing infatuation. It's not passing. How do you know? Because, Thorn turned to Leora, his eyes shone with unshed tears. Because she makes me feel alive. For the first time in my life, I feel alive. Leora's breath hitched. The Duchess's voice turned soft, dangerous. Then choose. What? Right here. Right now. Choose. The Duchess gestured at Leora. Her. Then at the room, the estate, everything. Or the Duchy. Time stopped. Everyone held their breath. Leora's heart pounded so hard she thought it would burst. Thorn stood frozen, eyes moving between his mother and Leora, between duty and love, between everything he'd ever known and everything he'd ever wanted. The Duchess smiled, triumphant. She knew he couldn't do it, couldn't throw it all away. But she didn't know Thorn, not really. He took a breath, squared his shoulders, looked his mother in the eye. I choose her. Gasps, whispers. The Duchess's face went white. Thorn walked across the room, stopped in front of Leora. I choose her, he repeated, louder. I choose love. I choose life. I choose freedom. Tears spilled down Leora's cheeks. You're making a mistake, the Duchess whispered. Maybe, Thorn took Leora's hand, but it's my mistake to make. The Duchess straightened, her face hardened into a mask. Then you are no longer my son. The words hung in the air, heavy, final. Thorn flinched, but he didn't let go of Leora's hand. So be it. He turned, led Leora toward the door. You'll have nothing, the Duchess called after them. No money, no home, no future. Thorn paused, looked back. I'll have her. That's everything. They walked out together. Behind them, chaos erupted. Voices, shouts, Lady Helena's sobs, the Duchess's rage. But Leora barely heard it. She heard only her heartbeat, only Thorn's breathing beside her, only the sound of the door closing behind them. They stood in the hallway, alone. What do we do now? Leora whispered. Thorn looked down at her, smiled, a real smile, bright, free. Now we live. But neither of them saw the shadow in the corner. Neither of them heard the whisper. Not if I can help it. They left that night. No bags, no money, no plan, just each other. Thorn wore simple clothes, not silk, not velvet, rough cotton that itched. Leora lent him a servant's cloak. Too small, too worn. He'd never looked more handsome. They walked down the long drive, away from Ashford Manor, away from everything Thorn had ever known. The moon watched them, silver, silent. "Are you afraid?" Leora asked. Thorn squeezed her hand. Terrified. "We can go back." "No," his voice was firm. "We can't." They reached the main road, stood at the crossroads. One path led to the village, to people who knew them, who'd recognize Thorn, who'd gossip. The other path led into darkness, into the unknown. Thorn chose darkness. They walked for hours. Leora's feet ached. Thorn's breathing grew labored. He wasn't used to walking, wasn't used to physical strain, but he didn't complain. At dawn, they found a barn, empty, warm with animal heat. They collapsed into the hay, exhausted, exhilarated. Thorn pulled Leora close, wrapped his arms around her, buried his face in her hair. "I love you," he whispered. "I love you too. I'm sorry I can't give you more. You've given me everything." They fell asleep like that, tangled together. Poor, free, happy. But happiness is fragile. They woke to shouting. A farmer stood over them, red-faced, angry. "What are you doing in my barn?" Thorn stood quickly, held up his hands. "We're sorry. We were just..." "Stealing? Trespassing?" The farmer gripped a pitchfork. "I should call the magistrate." "Please," Leora stepped forward. "We're not thieves. We just needed a place to sleep." The farmer's eyes narrowed, studied them, their fine features, their soft hands. "You're not common folk." Thorn said nothing. "You're running from something." Still nothing. The farmer's expression softened slightly. "I don't want trouble." "You won't have any," Thorn promised. "We'll leave right now." "Where are you going?" Thorn and Leora exchanged glances. They had no answer. The farmer sighed, lowered the pitchfork. "There's a village, 5 miles north. They might have work, a place to stay." "Thank you," Leora whispered. The farmer grunted, turned, stopped. "You're young, stupid. Whatever you're running from, it'll catch up eventually." "We know," Thorn said quietly. "Then run faster." They did. The village was called Ashwater. Small, poor, forgotten. Perfect. They found work at an inn. Thorn chopped wood, hauled water, mucked stables. Work that left him exhausted, blistered, aching. He loved it. Leora cleaned rooms, cooked meals, mended linens, work she'd done all her life. But now she did it with Thorn beside her, with stolen kisses in hallways, with whispered promises at night. They rented a tiny room above the inn. One bed, one window, one chair. It was paradise. Weeks passed, then months. Thorn's hands grew calloused, his shoulders broadened, his face tanned. He looked less like a duke, more like a man. He smiled more, laughed more. At night, he held Leora close and thanked God for the barn, for the farmer, for this second chance at life. But the past doesn't forget. One afternoon, a carriage arrived in Ashwater. Black, elegant, expensive. Leora saw it through the inn's window. Her blood ran cold. "Thorn!" He looked up from the firewood, saw the carriage. His face went pale. The carriage door opened. The Dowager Duchess stepped out. The Duchess didn't enter the inn. She stood outside, waiting, patient, like she had all the time in the world. Thorn wanted to run, to grab Leora and flee. But where would they go? How far could they get? "Stay here," he told Leora. "No." "Please." "No." Her voice was firm. "We face this together." They walked out together, hand in hand. The Duchess watched them approach. Her face was unreadable, carved from ice. "Mother." "Thorn." They stood 3 feet apart, mother and son, strangers. "How did you find us?" Thorn asked. "I've always known where you were." The Duchess's voice was soft, tired. "I have people, eyes everywhere." "Then why wait? Why come now?" The Duchess's gaze shifted to Leora, studied her. "You look different, both of you." Thorn said nothing. "Happier." The word sounded like an accusation, like a confession. "We are," Leora said quietly. The Duchess's jaw tightened. "I came to offer you a choice." "We already made our choice," Thorn said. "A different choice." The Duchess pulled an envelope from her cloak, extended it. "Your father's will, the original." Thorn frowned. "What?" "Your father left you everything, not just the duchy. Everything. Property, investments, money." The Duchess's hands trembled slightly. "I hid it, changed the will, made it seem like the duchy was all there was." Shock rippled through Thorn. "Why?" "To control you," the Duchess's voice cracked. "To keep you close, to keep you safe." "Safe?" Thorn's voice rose. "You suffocated me." "I protected you." Tears shone in the Duchess's eyes, real tears. "Your father died when you were 7. Do you remember?" Thorn's face tightened. "Of course I remember." "Do you remember how?" Silence. "He fell from his horse," the Duchess continued. "Broke his neck. Died instantly." "But do you know why he fell?" Thorn shook his head. "He was distracted, thinking about a woman, not me, a servant girl. He loved her, wanted to leave me, leave the duchy, leave everything." The Duchess's voice turned bitter. "He was so distracted, so consumed by love, that he didn't see the low branch, didn't duck, just," she made a sharp gesture, "gone." Thorn's breath caught. "I swore," the Duchess whispered, "that I wouldn't let the same thing happen to you. I swore I'd keep you focused, safe, alive." "So you made me a prisoner," Thorn said quietly. "I made you a duke." "I didn't want to be a duke. I wanted to be your son." The Duchess flinched. "You are my son." "Then why did you push me away? Why did you choose duty over love?" "Because love killed your father." The Duchess's voice broke. "And I can't, lose you too." Tears spilled down her cheeks, silent, heavy. Thorn stood frozen, torn between rage and pity. Leora stepped forward, spoke softly. "Your Grace, may I ask you something?" The Duchess turned, eyes red. "What? Did you love your husband?" "Of course, even after you knew about the servant girl." The Duchess's face crumpled. "Yes, God help me, yes." "Then you understand." Leora's voice was gentle. "You understand how it feels. To love someone so much you'd give up everything." The Duchess looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time, she didn't see a maid. She saw a woman who loved her son the way she'd loved her husband. "I do understand," the Duchess whispered. "That's why I'm afraid." "Of what?" Thorn asked. "Of losing you. To love, to distraction, to—" Her voice failed. "To life," Thorn finished. "You're afraid of losing me to life." The Duchess nodded, small, broken. Thorn moved forward, slowly. He reached out, touched his mother's shoulder. She flinched, then leaned into it. "You won't lose me," Thorn said softly. "Not if you let me go." The Duchess laughed, bitter, sad. "That makes no sense. It's the only thing that makes sense." They stood like that, mother and son, touching, healing. Finally, the Duchess stepped back, wiped her eyes, straightened her spine, became the Duchess again. "Take the will," she said. "It's yours. You'll have money, security. You can buy a home, build a life. You won't have to work in stables and inns." Thorn looked at the envelope, at the future it represented, at the freedom it offered. Then he looked at Leora, at the present, at the woman who'd given him everything. He took the envelope. "Thank you." The Duchess nodded, turned to leave, stopped. "One more thing." "Yes?" "Marry her." The Duchess didn't look back. "Properly, in a church, with witnesses. Make her your wife in truth, not just in heart." Thorn's throat tightened. "You'd accept that?" "I'd accept you." The Duchess's voice was soft. "I'd accept your happiness, even if I don't understand it." She climbed into the carriage. Before the door closed, she looked at Leora one last time. "Take care of him." "I will," Leora promised. "And you?" The Duchess looked at Thorn. "Take care of yourself. Don't be so consumed by love that you forget to live." "I won't." The Duchess smiled, small, sad. "Good." The carriage rolled away. Thorn and Leora stood in the road, watching until it disappeared. "What do we do now?" Leora asked. Thorn opened the envelope. Inside was a letter, legal documents, banknotes, freedom. "Now," he said slowly, "we decide, together, what we want, where we go, who we become." "No more running?" "No more running." Leora smiled. "Then let's go home." "Where is home?" She took his hand, squeezed. "Wherever you are." They bought a small estate, nothing like Ashford Manor, a modest house, 10 rooms, gardens, stables, a stream running through the property. Perfect. They married in the village church. Simple ceremony, no grand guests, just the innkeeper and his wife, the farmer who'd found them in his barn, a few villagers who'd grown to love them. Thorn cried during the vows. Leora cried during the kiss. They were happy. But happiness attracts envy. Lady Helena had not forgotten, had not forgiven. She'd been humiliated, jilted, made a laughingstock. Her engagement to a duke dissolved because of a maid. She wanted revenge. She hired investigators, spread rumors, whispered poison in the right ears. 3 months after the wedding, the first letter arrived. Anonymous, vicious. "The Duke of Ashford has married a whore, a nobody. He's sullied the family name. He should be stripped of his title, cast out, destroyed." Thorn burned the letter, but more came. Then newspapers picked up the story. "Duke abandons duty for servant girl. Scandal rocks Ashford family. Is love worth more than legacy?" The stories spread, across the county, across the country. Everyone had an opinion, everyone judged. Some sympathized. True love conquers all. Some condemned. He's a disgrace to his class. Thorn tried to ignore it, tried to focus on Leora, on their home, on their future. But the pressure mounted. Friends, former friends, cut ties. Invitations stopped coming. Doors closed. The Dowager Duchess wrote, "Come home, face this, fight back." But Thorn refused. "Let them talk," he told Leora. "Let them judge. We know the truth." Leora wasn't so sure. She saw the way he tensed when letters arrived, the way his jaw clenched when he read the newspapers, the way his eyes dimmed. He was hurting, and it was her fault. One night she found him in the study, staring at a painting. His father, young, proud, noble. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. Thorn turned. "What?" "Choosing me, losing everything. Do you regret it?" He crossed the room, cupped her face. Never. You look sad. I'm not sad. I'm angry. His eyes flashed. I'm angry that people think love is something to be ashamed of, that choosing happiness is weak, that caring about someone below your station is scandalous. Maybe they're right. They're not. Maybe I should leave, let you rebuild. You could say I left you, that you're free. You could... Stop. His voice was sharp. Don't finish that sentence. Don't even think it. But... No. He pulled her close. We made a vow, for better or worse. This is worse, but we face it together. Tears spilled down Leora's cheeks. I don't want you to suffer because of me. I'm not suffering. I'm fighting. There's a difference. Fighting what? A system that says birth matters more than character, that money matters more than heart, that titles matter more than truth. His voice rang with passion. I'm fighting for us, for everyone like us, for every person who's been told they're not good enough because of where they were born. Leora stared at him. This man, this duke, this warrior. What do we do? She whispered. Thorn smiled. We fight back. Thorn wrote an essay. Long, honest, brutal. He wrote about his childhood, the loneliness, the pressure, the cage of expectation. He wrote about meeting Leora, the light she brought, the freedom. He wrote about choosing love over duty, about humanity over hierarchy. He wrote about being a man before being a duke. He sent it to every newspaper in the country. Most refused to publish it. But one did. A small, radical paper in London, read by reformers, by workers, by people hungry for change. The essay exploded. Workers read it aloud in taverns. Reformers quoted it in speeches. Women copied it and passed it to friends. The Duke who chose love. It became a rallying cry. But it also became a target. The nobility attacked. He's betraying his class. He's giving commoners ideas. He's dangerous. Threats arrived. Anonymous. Violent. You'll pay for this. Your wife will pay. Watch your back. Thorn hired guards, locked the doors, kept Leora close. But fear crept in. One night, someone threw a rock through their window. Attached was a note. Traitor. Leora found Thorn in the study, staring at the broken glass, the rock, the word. We should leave, she said. Go somewhere they can't find us. I'm done running. Thorn. I won't hide. I won't apologize. I won't let them win. What if they hurt you? Then they prove my point. He turned, eyes blazing. That the system is rotten, that power corrupts, that change is necessary. I don't want you to be a martyr. I want you to be alive. He softened, crossed to her, pulled her close. I'm not trying to be a martyr. I'm trying to be free, truly free. And that means standing up, speaking out, refusing to be silenced. Leora buried her face in his chest. I'm scared. Me too. They held each other, in the dark, in the broken room, in the middle of a war they hadn't started but couldn't abandon. The next morning a carriage arrived. Not the Duchess's, bigger, grander, the royal seal on the door. Thorn and Leora exchanged glances. A footman knocked. His Grace the Duke of Ashford is summoned to appear before His Majesty the King. Thorn's stomach dropped. This was it. The crown. The ultimate authority. They were going to strip his title, condemn him, destroy him. But he squared his shoulders, lifted his chin. I'll go. We'll go, Leora corrected. The footman hesitated. The summons is for His Grace alone. I go nowhere without my wife. The footman bowed. As you wish. They rode to the palace in silence, hearts pounding, minds racing. The palace was massive, gold, marble, overwhelming. They were led through halls, past guards, past courtiers who whispered and stared. Finally, they reached the throne room. The king sat on a golden throne, old, tired, wise. Thorn bowed. Leora curtsied. Rise, the king said, voice deep, commanding. They rose. The king studied them, long, thorough. You've caused quite a stir, Duke Ashford. Yes, your majesty. Some say you're a hero, others say you're a fool. I'm neither, your majesty. I'm just a man. The king's lips twitched, almost a smile. A man who wrote a very dangerous essay. Dangerous, your majesty? Dangerous to the status quo, to the order we've maintained for centuries. The king leaned forward. Tell me, do you truly believe love is more important than duty? Thorn hesitated. This was a trap. It had to be. But he answered honestly. I believe love gives duty meaning. Without love, for people, for justice, for truth, duty becomes tyranny. Silence. The king sat back. Interesting. He gestured. A servant brought forward a document, official, sealed. The king signed it, handed it to Thorn. This strips you of nothing, but it acknowledges something, that the aristocracy must evolve, that titles without character are worthless, that England's future depends on men like you, men willing to challenge, to change, to care. Thorn stared at the document, stunned. You're not going to punish me? Punish you? For loving your wife? For speaking truth? The king smiled. On the contrary, I'm thanking you. For what? For reminding me, and everyone watching, that power is a privilege, not a right, and that those who wield it must be worthy. Tears stung Thorn's eyes. The king stood, descended from the throne, stood before Thorn and Leora. Go home, he said softly. Build your life, love your wife, and continue to speak. Continue to challenge. England needs voices like yours. Thorn bowed, deep, respectful. Thank you, your majesty. Thank you, Duke Ashford, Duchess Ashford. He nodded to Leora. You've both done this kingdom a service. They left the palace in a daze. In the carriage, Leora finally spoke. Did that really happen? Thorn laughed. High, bright, free. I think so. We're safe? We're safe. She threw her arms around him. He held her tight, buried his face in her hair. We did it, he whispered. We actually did it. But the fight wasn't over. Not yet. Lady Helena didn't accept defeat. She'd lost the Duke, lost her chance at a title, lost her dignity. She wanted them to lose everything too. She hired men, rough men, dangerous men. One night, they came to the estate. Thorn and Leora were asleep, safe, warm, happy. The crash of breaking glass shattered their peace. Thorn bolted upright. Stay here. No! But he was already moving, grabbing a poker from the fireplace, running toward the sound. 3 men stood in the foyer, masked, armed. The Duke of Ashford, one sneered. Not so grand now, are you? Thorn raised the poker. Leave, now. Can't do that. We've been paid to deliver a message. What message? That some lines shouldn't be crossed. Some women shouldn't be married. Rage flooded Thorn. You work for Lady Helena. The man shrugged. We work for whoever pays. Now, step aside. Our business is with the maid. She's not a maid. She's my wife, and you'll go through me first. The men advanced. Thorn swung the poker, connected with one man's arm. The man howled, dropped his knife, but the other two rushed him, overpowered him, pinned him down. "Thorn!" Leora screamed from the stairs. "Run!" he shouted. But she didn't run. She grabbed a vase, smashed it over one man's head. He crumpled. The third man turned, lunged at Leora. Thorn roared, broke free, tackled the man. They crashed into the wall, fists flew, blood spilled, furniture shattered. Then, a gunshot. Everyone froze. The Dowager Duchess stood in the doorway, smoking pistol in hand, face pale but determined. "That," she said calmly, "is enough." The men backed away, hands raised. "Who hired you?" the Duchess demanded. Silence. She cocked the pistol. "I asked a question." "Lady Helena," one man finally gasped. "Lady Helena Weston." The Duchess's face hardened. "Leave. If I ever see you near my son again, I'll do more than fire a warning shot." The men fled. The Duchess lowered the pistol, looked at Thorn, at Leora. "Are you hurt?" "Mother," Thorn's voice cracked. "You came." "Of course I came." She moved to him, touched his bleeding lip. "You're my son, my only son. I may not understand your choices, but I'll defend your right to make them." Thorn pulled her into a hug. She stiffened, then melted, wrapped her arms around him, held him like she'd wanted to for years. When they pulled apart, both were crying. "What about Lady Helena?" Leora asked. The Duchess's expression turned ice cold. "Leave her to me." The next day, the Duchess visited Lady Helena. What was said, no one knew. But Lady Helena left England that week, fled to the continent, never returned. The men she'd hired confessed, were arrested, sentenced. The scandal died. Peace settled over the estate. Thorn and Leora woke each morning in each other's arms, worked their gardens, hosted dinners for friends, real friends, the kind who didn't care about titles. The Dowager Duchess visited once a month. At first, the visits were stiff, formal, but slowly she softened, laughed, played with the children when they arrived. Yes, children. A daughter first, dark hair, grey eyes, fierce like her grandmother, kind like her mother. Then a son, quiet, thoughtful, gentle like his father, strong like his mother. Thorn taught them to read, to ride, to question everything. Leora taught them to work, to empathize, to love without conditions. The Duchess taught them history, pride, the weight of legacy. Together, they built something new, a family not bound by duty or expectation, but by choice, by love, by respect. 20 years passed. Thorn's hair turned silver at the temples. Leora's hands grew rough from gardening. The Duchess's back bent slightly, but her eyes stayed sharp. They sat in the garden one afternoon, the three of them, watching the children, now grown, play with their own children. "Do you ever regret it?" the Duchess asked quietly. "Choosing Leora?" Thorn smiled. "Never." "Losing the duchy?" "I didn't lose it. I redefined it." He gestured at the estate, at the children, at the life they'd built. "This is my duchy. This is my legacy." The Duchess nodded. "Your father would be proud." "Would he?" "Yes." Her voice was firm. "He wanted you to be happy. I forgot that. For too long. But I remember now." Leora reached over, took the Duchess's hand. "Thank you." "For what?" "For coming back. For staying. For loving us even when you didn't understand." The Duchess squeezed her hand. "You made it easy." They sat in comfortable silence. Three people who'd been enemies, who'd become family. "Grandfather!" Thorn's grandson ran up. 5 years old, wild dark hair, bright grey eyes. "Tell me the story again." "What story?" "The one about how you chose Grandma." Thorn laughed, pulled the boy onto his lap. "You've heard it 100 times. I want to hear it again." So Thorn told it, again. The meeting, the choice, the fight, the love. The boy listened, eyes wide. "You gave up everything." "I gave up nothing." Thorn kissed his head. "I gained everything." The boy smiled, ran off to play. Leora leaned her head on Thorn's shoulder. "Do you think he'll understand when he's older?" "Maybe, maybe not." Thorn wrapped his arm around her. "But he'll know it's possible. To choose love, to choose life, to choose freedom. And that's enough? That's everything." The sun set, gold and pink and orange. The garden glowed. 3 people sat together, watching the light fade, watching their family grow, watching the world change. And in that moment, everything was perfect. Not because life was easy, not because there were no more struggles, not because the world had accepted them, but because they'd accepted themselves. Because they'd chosen love, every day, through every challenge, through every doubt. And love had been enough, more than enough. It had been everything. 50 years after that moment in the drawing room, historians wrote about Duke Thorn Ashford. Some called him a revolutionary, some called him a romantic fool. But everyone agreed on one thing. He'd changed England. His essay sparked movements, reform bills, conversations about class and love and humanity. Slowly, so slowly, the aristocracy evolved. Not completely, not perfectly, but enough. Enough that other dukes married maids, other lords married merchants' daughters, other nobles chose love over legacy. And each time, they cited Thorn's words. Love gives duty meaning. When Thorn died, old, happy, surrounded by family, thousands attended his funeral. Not just nobles, workers, servants, reformers, people who'd never met him but whose lives he'd touched. Leora stood at his grave, white hair, lined face, still beautiful. "You did it," she whispered. "You changed the world." But in her heart, she knew the truth. He hadn't changed the world, he'd changed himself. And that had been enough to inspire others to change too. She placed a single rose on his grave, kissed her fingers, touched the headstone. Duke Thorn Ashford, he chose love. And beneath it, carved smaller but no less important, she chose him back. Leora smiled, tears streaming down her face. "I'd choose you again. In every lifetime, in every world, I'd choose you." The wind whispered through the trees, warm, gentle, almost like a voice. "I know. I'd choose you too." She closed her eyes, felt him there, in the wind, in the light, in the love that never died. And she knew. Their story wasn't over. It would live forever. In the hearts of everyone who believed love was stronger than duty, than expectation, than fear. In the hearts of everyone who chose, who fought, who loved. Their story would never end, because love never ends. It transforms, it grows, it changes, but it never, ever ends. And that was the greatest legacy of all.